we used to be like known for some of the flyest stuff, like in the city. Like I'm like Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, like Janet Jackson had a crib here. Like, Prince was here. There was like all these
Prince
amazing.
was raised here. Okay.
Prince was raised here.
Yeah. North side.
Yes.
Welcome to Reclaiming Home, a podcast focused on delivering thoughtful conversation and tangible actions to make housing justice a reality in our communities. I'm your host, Asale Sol Young, Executive Director of Urban Homeworks, an educator, activist, and proud Turtle Papa. I'm a Black Legacy native of Evanston, Illinois, and a proud descendant of Haitians and rural Black and Indigenous North Carolinians. Join me as we take time each month to dive into all things housing, including potential policies, community dreams, persistent systemic barriers. We'll also celebrate success and everything in between. We are so glad you're here.
Here at Urban Homeworks, we acknowledge that we live our lives and do our work on land that European colonizers stole from the Dakota peoples indigenous to Minnesota. In order for this theft to occur, sadistic acts of genocide, rape, and forced assimilation were employed. We also acknowledge that we live our lives and do our work on land that was cultivated and developed by bodies that European colonizers stole from West African countries through the transatlantic slave trade. In order for these thefts to occur, sadistic acts of genocide, rape, and forced assimilation were employed. As we acknowledge what was taken from our collective human ancestors, we commit to work and fight for the liberation of the descendants of those enslaved through American chattel slavery and the sovereignty of all Native American peoples. And with that, welcome to Reclaiming Home, Housing Justice with Urban Homeworks. Today, I am so excited to be joined by Gabrielle Grier, the Chief Innovation Officer for the African American Leadership Forum. Gabrielle, I'd love for you to go ahead and introduce your voice and yourself to our listeners. Share a little bit about yourself and how you ended up working with ALF.
All right. Good day, everybody. As Asale So said, my name is Gabrielle Grier. I have been a part of navigating alongside of Black folks in community for a long time, and have done that in ways that channel new approaches, how to insert the arts, thinking about creativity as a means to do that, that often lead to radical approaches or new approaches to systems change. And so my good colleague and friend, Adair Mosley, is now the chief officer and the president of the forum. And we're partnering together to do new things.
That's awesome. And are we calling ALF now the forum? Is that official?
We're also going through a similar brand change.
Okay.
And so we're trying not to have a mouthful of words to say. So I think we will always officially be the African American Leadership Forum. But we're the forum.
All right, the forum. I like it. It's very, millennial. Welcome to the new era, ALF. Welcome. And what are your preferred pronouns?
She, her.
She, her. Awesome. Thank you. As a reminder to our audience, I'm Asale Sol. I'm the executive director here at Urban Homeworks. I prefer they, them pronouns. And if you're new to Urban Homeworks, we are a 28-year-old housing justice organization that focuses on deeply affordable rental opportunities. We also develop homes. Everything we do in housing is the community voice, including making sure that the policies that we push for come directly from the community as well. And with that, let's get into it. So Gabrielle, I don't know if I know your history with North Minneapolis, like where you began.
Yes. So I grew up actually in Brooklyn Center.
Okay.
And went to Earl Brown. Shout out Earl Brown. And my family then moved to Plymouth,
Okay.
but all of my family were Northsiders. So everyone lived on 42nd and Penn for the most part. And so that was community for me. And so when my mom moved us, due to a lot of the reasons that families are navigating, do we stay here, do we not? It was the quote in our house that like your zip code is not your home. And so she would drive me, family would drive me to North Minneapolis, and I spent so much of my time not only with family, but also it was my first job. So I worked at Franklin Middle School in the summer camps, at the Beacon after school program. And back then that was the first time ever really that I would have identified I didn't know that I was an organizer back then, but I was. So I did block parties at the Kwanzaa church back when it was there. I used to do like talent shows at Franklin Middle School in the summers. I would do double dutch competitions, and I would be like on my bike. My mom would put the bike in the van from Plymouth, and I would like bike around and flyer about.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was like a little baby organizer.
Yes, that's what's up.
That was my first touch on the North Side.
Yeah. Okay. So bring us from those very powerful and endearing beginnings to today. When did you know you were an organizer? Did it come with a job where you were like, okay, I'm officially an organizer, or was it really about a mindset for you?
I think it started really with having elders in the community who were able to see me before I could see myself, and who were giving me aspirational titles before I really knew them and understood them. Definitely people like Uncle Bill Cotman was one of the first people that's like, you are this thing. Don't let them take your flames. You are a fiery, flickering fireball. And what he meant through, many conversations was about me being able to navigate and pick up ways to make webs and ways to make interconnections and relationships. And so, although I don't necessarily identify as the organizers who's on the front lines, I'm a part of the ecosystem of people that are about getting things done and getting things moved for the Black community.
Yep, that's right. Awesome. And sister, shout out to Papa Cotman. So I really appreciate just hearing more of that story about your journey. And I'm curious, as someone who's very much grounded in the North Side, in the community, the inner workings of the community, like what are things that you've seen change over time in North, good or bad?
I was just having this conversation with a group of folks, and we were saying like, there used to be people that worked in the schools whose houses you could go to, and where that relationship between getting rides and staying at someone's house or spending the night at a mentor's house, those weren't things that were problematic, in the late 90s or the early 2000s. But I think socially, with the fear of the way that things happen in community, that's a thing. And I'm watching how the barriers that are placed up in schools and outside of schools are impacting how folks relate to each other, and wondering how that's impacting people's abilities to feel or express intimacy and have deep relationships that navigate the complexity of vulnerability. And what is that doing to our relationships, both from a communal level, professionally, that there's this tension around intimacy, and that's a big change that I'm feeling.
Yep. Yeah. What do you think has brought that on in North Minneapolis? Because as someone who's not from here, I grew up in a small community where all the Black people were very much connected. I grew up in a suburb of Chicago, and it feels very similar to me to North Minneapolis. And so it's easy to, when I go back, I can see how drastically it's changing, and that connection and that intimacy is changing. What are things that you feel are driving that here?
I think a big part of it is people are leaving. And so like the longevity of people being like pillars in community aren't there. And so there's not the same length of time to build those relationships like they used to. And this isn't everybody, but I'm just noticing that, you know, if families are believing that this is no longer safe, if organizations are feeling like Northside isn't safe for whatever those reasons are,
Right.
and you don't have the OGs and the grandpas and the people that are here on the block, on the porch, the way that they used to, the time that it takes to develop those relationships, it's not there anymore.
Right.
And so rapid, I think people in transit and transitioning has deeply impacted how people are connected.
Yep. Where do you think, where are people going?
You know, that is a good question. I feel like when I talk to families, you know, on a large spectrum, there are some that are like, I just go wherever my Section 8 voucher takes me.
Okay.
I have families that are saying like, I'm trying to figure out where are there other small pockets of Black people in community that are right outside of the city. So what do Black communities look like in Robbinsdale and in Crystal and in St. Louis Park, all those second ring cities that feel like there's, you know, some level of being or feeling removed from the direct harm or, you know, lack of safety that they feel.
So safety is the driving concern, you feel like?
I feel like that's definitely been for sure a thing that I've heard.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. I know that you know, we moved from Emerson and Broadway to here, just literally down the block. And I just remember when we were looking for our new home, it was really the question of like, well, what is happening along Broadway? Can we sustain an existence on Broadway? Staff coming from all over the place. Can we sustain that? Are our residents going to feel comfortable coming to Broadway? And I think for me, like choosing to remain on Broadway was about, it wasn't a lack of recognition of what was going on. It was like, if we all leave, what is left? And just really wanting to kind of reclaim the space. So it's like, we can be just as big and loud as the thing that's pushing us away, right? What are things that are exciting? Like, so we've kind of spent time talking about what's pushing people away. What are things that you feel like are drawing people here, or things that even keep you rooted and dedicated to North Minneapolis?
Oh man, because we're just so super fly. Like, regardless of whatever people's perceptions are of North Minneapolis, there are so many amazing and super fly things that are happening in North Minneapolis just by way of culture. And so like, I can't, to be separate from that feels like it would be separate from myself. Partially because it's such a geographical like identity marker for me, but also just because like, I can't leave.
Yeah.
Like I can't leave because there are, what is it? Like this is the most concentration of young people of all the cities in the Twin Cities. Like, that is why I'm here. They are exciting. They are the ones that are pushing and driving new ways of thinking. I gotta be close to them. I'm thinking about like the projects of Black folks who are deeply interested in like keeping North Minneapolis centered around Black history. Black people have been here since the early 1900s, building cultural architecture forever. Like, we got to hold down that legacy of cultural architecture. So that's what it is exciting to me, the people.
That's what's up. What, for our audience that, you know, are folks that are in North, outside of North, the suburbs, like what are things that you feel you want to point their attention towards?
So I would say, I know that there are people that are here. So I'm thinking about like, okay, the Sanctuary Church has been a pillar for a while, but they are investing a lot of intentional ways in North Minneapolis that sometimes don't get a lot of shine. And there's a ton of practices that they are upholding in the church that are demonstrated on the block, that nobody gets turned away. Everybody deserves something and attention. And it is important to think about the resources that you're holding internally and what that looks like everywhere. That's exciting to me. Like, how do we allow the people that need stuff to get the things that they need?
That's right. Yeah.
I am thinking about the ownership that happened for the gas station in Winter's Way, and like the church and community rallying together to ensure that that didn't become a place for the drug folks to just come in and, you know, negatively harm our city. And it's part of the city. I am, you know, really excited about what this next, the intersection, like, what does that look like? What kinds of young people are going to be booming and moving through? So again, for me right now, it is less to me necessarily about the projects that are happening and more about the people that are investing in this area and choosing to stay, as you said.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I love that. I'm curious, you know, a lot changed around the country after George Floyd was murdered. And, you know, he was murdered in South Minneapolis. And, you know, I think that we saw, my experience, I was living in South at the time. And so my experience was very much like what was happening in South around that, around the uprising. How did that feel to be in South during the uprising? And to experience in the counter uprising. And it was awful, right? I'm curious, like, when we look at the impact, though, of that moment that became a global moment, like, how has North specifically been impacted by that, if at all? Right? Like, let's tell truth, because maybe it's not at all.
So I'll answer your first question is like, how are people thinking about it? I feel like, you know, I was just having a conversation. I was traveling. I told somebody I was from Minneapolis, and the first thing they say is like, oh, you're from the city where George Floyd was murdered. And my thought was like our whole identity is being deduced down to that moment. And I understand that it is forever going to be a historical, like, pinpoint for our city. And like, we're so much more than that. And so I've been like dealing with this like back and forth about like, how do you hold the fact that like, yes, that is true. And also consider the fact that like, we used to be like known for some of the flyest stuff like in the city. Like, I'm like Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, like Janet Jackson had a crib here. Like, you know, Prince was here. There was like all these amazing.
Prince was raised here. Okay.
Prince was raised here.
Yeah. North side.
Yes. And so like, does that get washed away with the current reality of what happened to the murder and the lynching of George Floyd publicly? Like, is that a part of our history now? Like, it doesn't exist. Whatever was before is no more because of that moment. And I would disagree. I think there's an ability to hold both. I don't know. I feel like there is a different narrative in North Minneapolis, though. I think like lots of people were impacted like during the uprisings. Yes, we know that, but it's not the same narrative as South Minneapolis. It's just not. I feel like people that it's a continuous like, well, North Minneapolis has just always been what it ain't. And South Minneapolis has this new like, you know, here we are, you know,
we out here too.
Exactly. So I don't think it's the same.
Okay.
I do not think, I think North and South have always been very different.
Oh, yes. But I mean, like, do you think that North has changed at all since, I mean, because what we know, what Black people have always known is that what happened to George Floyd, unfortunately, was a big deal for white people to see that for the first time.
Right.
And of course, painful still to us to again witness that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not a first time in our collective consciousness.
No.
But I'm curious, like, in terms of the collective consciousness, and not to overly embellish or highlight that moment, but was there, in your mind, has there been a psychological shift for Black folks in North? I mean, I like any kind of conversational shifts, like I'll just give an example. I'm noticing that when people talk about safety, it has a different tone to it.
Okay, say more about that.
It's
Help
like,
me.
yeah, absolutely. So I'm a part of this group that meets monthly, primarily was brought together because of safety concerns along Broadway in North Minneapolis. And it's just been really interesting the way that group is trying to work with the police to say, like, well, what are you doing beyond telling drug addicts and drug dealers that they need to move? Like, what kinds of supports are you offering them? Our young people, what are we offering them when we're getting annoyed at them stealing cars and breaking into cars?
Mm-hmm.
What are we doing beyond just telling them that they're bad,
Mm-hmm.
that they need to go to juvie?
Right.
Right, like that's the conversation.
So then my question to you, like, is that really an impactful moment? Because are those conversations becoming more impactful because of George Floyd's lynching, or is that because of COVID?
Oh, snap. Okay. Interesting. You think that people, okay. So when I hear that question, I'm like, so you're feeling like because of the way, well, I mean, in some ways, COVID is why we paid so much attention to George Floyd.
I don't think that they're mutually exclusive. Right. I think they dance together in a very negative song. And I think what's happening is, similarly, I was in conversations on the North Side about safety as well. Mm-hmm. And the conversations were different though. Like, I now need to decide as a leader of an organization or as a small business owner, do I pay for my employees to have health insurance, or do I pay for security of my building? And so the idea of safety, quote, became philosophical, and it also became this conversation around, like, what are your values? Mm-hmm. And then the reality of, like, safety for my people, or for, like, safety for what I own. And that was a result of lack of resources and lack of people coming through the North Side, like paying for and doing things that related to retail and restaurants. Right. So I feel like, I don't know. I think they dance. Yeah. But I feel more about, like, okay, this is a moment in time for Black people, mm-hmm, where we are back to some hardcore survival mode. Mm-hmm. And this ain't new to us. COVID's not the reality of, like, how do I survive this is not new. Yep. It is now, it's just a different kind of hard. Yep. And so I feel like more conversations were happening in regard to that. And from an identity perspective on the North Side, people were just sad. Mm-hmm. You know, like it was more of like collective sorrow. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, that's really fair. I think that, Urban Homeworks did a lot of changing during COVID. And I think that I agree with you that was a more pivotal moment in how we talk about what is happening in the community. And even like our willingness to like publicly address it. So it's like, as a landlord, Urban Homeworks as a landlord, we had to really reconcile the fact that our residents didn't have, it was like, where are they going to get food?
Right.
Right. And, what is happening with people's jobs? Like, mm-hmm, as an affordable housing organization, we already struggle to receive rent. Mm-hmm. And so now there's this other thing happening. And so how do we keep people supported and housed? Because that's also public safety. It's also health, mm-hmm, and wellness, and sustain ourselves as an organization. Mm-hmm. And so I do think that has kind of shifted conversations as well, where organizations are more willing to say, like, actually, this is what it takes to get the work done. Mm-hmm. And businesses are willing to say, if nobody's coming to my business, then I can't pay my employees. Right? Like, if people are scared to come here, or they're just not coming here, like, it really started to shift things, I think, in that way.
Maybe it is that the lack of vulnerability that I talked about before showed up in a new way because we had to. we had to have a different kind of hard conversation than we were used to because we were all collectively going through it.
Yeah.
Maybe it is that. Maybe there was an opening to say like, okay, actually, it really does cost $50,000.
Yes.
But I've been saying it costs $10,000
Yes.
because I don't know, I don't feel worthy.
Yes.
Systemically, you've pushed me into a belief system that like I am less than, underqualified,
Yes.
etc.
Yes.
But now we're in a conversation about like truly living.
Yes.
And maybe that was the opening. It was like, well, if this can happen to our brother live,
yes,
and we can all witness that, what is living?
yes.
Maybe that is the opening that occurred across North and South Minneapolis.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that really hits the nail on the head. And I don't want to go, it's like with North, I feel like it's easy to go into this negative space. I'm trying to get at like, what are the shifts in North? So naming what you just said, I feel really excited about the things that I'm seeing in North Minneapolis right now. I just feel like it feels like there's really cool momentum where people have like, it's like greater hope. It's like coming out of what we were just talking about with COVID, like this really negative, very difficult space that we were in collectively.
Yep.
So that has like opened us up to have more hope and belief in each other, which feels so exciting to me. And, I think that as we think about, all the development that's happening in North, all of the, it's like the impending blue line, which is going to have an impact, positive, negative, all the above. The way that we're really rooting in local ownership opportunities, like all those things feel really exciting to me. And like they're turning the tables a bit here. Are there things that you're kind of dreaming about right now for the community?
Yeah, I know there are a lot of people who have positional power and connections to financial resources who are trying to figure out what their role is in investing in North Minneapolis. I'm excited about that. I'm excited about saying that on a national level, our little side of Minneapolis could have a significant level of investment financially that could drastically change the history of North Minneapolis forever. And that if there could then be these positive ripples from that. So we got one person, one institution that's like, yep, we will be the first. And then will other people follow suit and say, oh, is there something there that we don't know? And then conversations will blossom at the levels in which they need to, systematically from a policy and legislation perspective that could have impacts for my next family's generations to experience North Minneapolis. I am interested in the like long-term deep investments that aren't necessarily public and like, local, but are happening in a way that will change, actually not change, maintain that cultural importance that I talked about before. And just like what that then means for other people to think like, oh, have I been afraid to like be deeply connected to this space? And then can that give me the opportunity to dream? And just seeing a variety of people who are interested in being in conversations about dreaming, like that to me is the thing. It's going to be the young people, it's going to be the resources, and it's going to be people saying, no, let's actually sit on the front porch and have these conversations because we're worthy, because we're worth it, because North Minneapolis deserves that.
That's right.
And that is what I'm excited about. I'm like, can we get the people amped again?
Yes.
That is what I'm more than any project, because people are going to be the ones that move it.
Yes, that's right. That's right. I love that. Get the people amped again. Let's go. Let's go. For just like a fun little ending question, what is your favorite part of North Minneapolis and why?
Oh, man. That is a question.
I know, right? And you can think about it in an abundance of ways. Like, is it your favorite kind of downtime, meditative, reflective part of North Minneapolis? Is it your favorite, like, I know when I go here, it's gonna be like cheers and everybody's gonna be like, Gabrielle. Like, what's your favorite? You can choose what kind of favorite.
Okay. My favorite part of North Minneapolis, it's like a two-part.
Okay.
My favorite part is like sitting at breaking bread, like in the middle of the afternoon on a Wednesday.
Yes.
Because I know for sure I'm gonna see somebody and it's gonna be like, oh, I ain't seen you in a long time. And then there's this opening moment. My second favorite part is like this little hidden gem. It's in the Northside Healing Center basement. They have that labyrinth maze, and every kid that I know who's like gone either after school programs or the summer or just has been there has a memory about that being the first time that they felt deeply connected to their ancestry and like understanding West African symbolism. So this like kinesthetic connection to ancestry, it's like a little gem, like that room, breaking bread.
That's what's up.
And probably the skate park for the turn up events.
I love it. Yes, we get this whole Northside rundown.
Yes.
Everybody go visit the healing space, breaking bread, and the skate park if you haven't been to those places yet.
Yes.
Gabrielle, thank you so much for your time today, for letting us just like pick your brain about random Northside things and leaning into that, leaning into the conversation with us.
I appreciate being here. I appreciate being able to support what you're doing as a leader. And we were just saying, y'all, for those that don't know, like there are people that hold down certain things, and Saleh Soul is definitely holding down the right kind of housing. So let's remember that as y'all tune in.
Ashe, thank you for that. All right. As you all know, audience members, from our last month's episodes, our future contains a lot of homeownership opportunity development that is happening primarily in North Minneapolis. And we are constantly looking to raise funds to fill our gaps, to grow this work. If you believe that Urban Homeworks is the right kind of housing justice organization, please support our work. We know that this is the right way to do any kind of community work, and we really want to spread this methodology. We would like it to grow, and so it takes all of us to get there. So I'm going to make a direct plug and ask that you all consider becoming a monthly donor or stability maker to our work. You can make your first donation or sign up as a monthly donor at www.urbanhomeworks.org. /donate-monthly. That is a lot of words. www.urbanhomeworks.org. I say /, some people say / donate-monthly. And please make sure you're following us on social media. If I did not say this, Katie Herrick, our social media and marketing guru, would totally tell me that I did this wrong. So please look us up on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We are all over the place. So for all the different generations, you can find us somewhere that works for you. Our handle is @UrbanHomeworks across those platforms. And a reminder that on Tuesday, August 8th, which is little less than a month right now, is primary election day for parts of Minnesota. We will have links in our show notes to check your voter registration and find your polling place. You can vote early by mail or in person starting June 23rd through August 7th, or in person on August 8th. This is like a simple way to show up, right? Voting is basic. Please be a voter. And as we wrap up, Gabrielle, is there anything that you want to shout out for ALF? Anything that you're like, come through?
Little teaser, small teaser. We will have our first big event happening this fall. I can't say much right now, but really think about the intersections of education and education as an ecosystem. A lot of cool stuff as we think about the transference of knowledge, how that's passed down, and just the transference of skills across our identities. And so really excited about that. There will be save the dates coming out in the next couple of weeks. It's going to be amazing.
So we believe it because it's y'all. So thank you so much again. And audience, thanks for tuning in. I hope you all enjoyed this hangout with Gabrielle Grier.
Thank y'all.
Peace.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Reclaiming Home, Housing Justice with Urban Homeworks for today's discussion. If you like this podcast and want to support Urban Homeworks housing work, head over to www.urbanhomeworks.org/donate to make a gift, attend a future event, volunteer with us, or learn more. Until next time, remain connected and informed.